Well, thank you very much. I want to thank everyone here at St. Philip for letting me come today and speak to you a little bit about opportunities with an organization that many of your students and faculty and staff may not be very familiar with, okay? Which is the US Department of State. And I think a lot of the reason why so many people here aren't so familiar with this is because the federal government is a really interesting place to work, but it also seems very far away when you don't live in Washington, D.C. As the slide up on the screen shows, I grew up around Washington, D.C. I'm from a little town called Newport News, which is about 3 hours south of D.C. And my dad was in the military, and I was actually born in D.C. And when you're in that area, somebody you know works in the federal government, either the Department of Defense or some other agency, NASA or something like that. So the federal government wasn't a foreign thing to me, but I realize now, being in Texas for the past year, it's a long way away. And so when students and professionals are thinking about where they're going to take their skills, I don't see so much that the Department of State or Commerce or Agriculture or all the other parts of the department, the federal government, you know, are the things that resonate with people for careers this far out. And I read an article recently, I think I told James this when we were talking, that Texas is considered the stickiest state in the union because some 82% of Texans that are born in Texas stick around in Texas. It's a state that has a center of gravity, and I get it. It's a big state. It's got a booming economy. There's a lot of opportunities here. But what I have to offer is a little bit different. I was happy to hear that, you know, I did do a presentation with Alamo Colleges last year and was able to speak to a number of different campuses, but I had St. Philip on my radar for a number of reasons. One, I'm an HBCU graduate. I went to a historically Black college coming out of high school. And two, we are in the business of attracting people to this place, the State Department, the federal agency that is responsible for the diplomacy of the United States. So I've lost my cursor there. Let's come on down. Where are you? Down, cursor. Anybody see the cursor?
Yes, it was on the far right.
On the far right? Come back. There we go. So, you know, we are the agency that leads American diplomacy, right? And that's a pretty vague idea. Diplomacy was not something I grew up understanding as a kid. I saw a lot of movies, and every so often they would name an ambassador. They'd say, that's the ambassador from the United States. That's the ambassador from this country or that. But what an ambassador is and what a diplomat is not something that stands out to a lot of people. And therefore, the agency that is responsible for America's diplomacy around the world is largely unknown to the average American citizen. People watch the news and they see Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the Middle East trying to work on, you know, bringing a ceasefire to this conflict that's currently raging there. Or they see new trade agreements might be signed with China or something to that effect. But what they don't see are that in addition to these high-level government officials, there are tens of thousands of people working in the business of diplomacy, working in the business of how their government functions around the world to try to increase our cooperation with other countries, to try to increase trade with other countries. Because if we have more trade with other countries, and if American businesses are successful overseas, then that means more jobs for Americans back here. Or looking out for American citizens that are traveling around the world. When you get your passport, if you're ever able to go overseas, or if you got family overseas and you're going to visit and you need that passport, you got to get it from the State Department. And if you're overseas and you lose that passport, you got to come to your embassy and your consulate to get taken care of, right? So we are that agency. We are that institution that has a global representation of the United States all over the world. Your government has 276 US embassies in 191 countries around the world. And that's a policy statement. I like to reiterate that to folks. No other country in the world can do that. No other country in the world has an embassy or consulate in pretty much every country in the world. And we do that, one, to look out for our people, because Americans are everywhere. And two, because the world is big and complex. And whether it's always stated, there is an expectation that the United States is going to have a role in big issues. So we got to be close to the action. We need our people there. And we have to be able to operate around the world, no matter what. And we do. As I said, we are globally represented. This is a map in which every little dot that you can see here represents a consulate or an embassy somewhere in the world where we are operating and representing the American people. It's a complex business. It's a big organization. And it takes a lot of different tools and resources to keep that all together. Now, I'm here at St. Philip today to talk about a very specific type of need that we have, which relates to computer science and information technology. That's what you guys do, so that's what you want to hear. But I wanted to give you that context of what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a career and an organization that operates globally. And because we operate globally and because it's our job to be the face of the United States to the rest of the world, we want the people that work for us to represent all of the United States, right? Not just the people around Washington, D.C., but Texas, California, Guam, Maine, Massachusetts, every diversity, every background, every level of education, every type of education. We want them all at the Department of State. And it's not just to have them, it's because we have the need for all of those things. I'll give you an example of what it means when it comes to computers, when it comes to cybersecurity, when it comes to connectivity. Imagine an embassy. I know you may not have ever worked with one, you might have ever even seen one, but you get the idea that an embassy is there to represent the United States to another country. Embassies are led by ambassadors, senior US government officials whose job is to be the president's representative to another country. Imagine that ambassador is leading an embassy that has 50 American officers, right? Doing lots of different things, political stuff, economic stuff, helping American citizens. And all those Americans that work at the embassy have families, right? So imagine they got their kids and their spouses and their nieces and nephews and sometimes parents living with them. And imagine one day that the government of the country that they're working in makes a decision, whatever it could be. And the people of that country in which this US embassy is occupied, is working, don't like it. And all of a sudden, you go from a peaceful country to a country where there are protests in the street. First by the hundreds, then by the thousands, then by the tens of thousands, then by the hundreds of thousands. And imagine one day those protests go from being peaceful protests to being violent. And then the government decides to shut off the internet. Now, your job as an embassy is to protect your people and to communicate with Washington so they know what's going on there. And all of a sudden, you can't do that. What do? Well, for us, we call the diplomats that can maintain those networks. We call the people that we call diplomatic technology officers, because in addition to all the people that are out there focusing on foreign policy and promoting agriculture and helping American citizens and managing various aspects of our work, somebody's got to keep our communication systems up and running. With 276 embassies in 191 countries, a lot of that information is both classified and unclassified. And that communication has to happen. We have cloud systems, we have hard physical IT infrastructure, we have networks and servers all over the world, but they have to function all the time. When the Secretary of State needs to know what's going on in Bangladesh, because the scenario I told you about was real, that happened recently, right? Not that long ago, less than 3 months ago, the exact scenario that I gave you happened. The government of Bangladesh shut off the internet for more than a week, and you have an embassy that's trying to report back to the Secretary of State and tell them what's going on with violent protests happening that have turned violent and people are dying, and all of a sudden there's no internet, right? We worked. Our department sent people out, and the diplomatic technology officers and people working on a host of other IT-related, cybersecurity-related issues were the ones that were there to make sure that the systems worked, that our communication didn't stop, that the information continued to flow. So, what I want to share with you is that there are jobs in the Department of State that focus on a lot of different things. I could sell your students on becoming diplomats that would represent their country around the world. What I'm here to talk about are the diplomatic technology jobs and security engineering jobs that draw upon skills that relate to IT, computer science, and cybersecurity. Those are the needs that we have a great need for. They fall into a category called the foreign service. The Foreign Service are the federal employees for the State Department that live and work overseas. And they spend much of their careers overseas. I've been with the Department of State for 24 and a half years. I spent 14 of those living and working outside of my country in 6 different countries on 5 continents, from Bamako, Mali, Pretoria, South Africa, to Brussels, Belgium, to Recife, Brazil, Baghdad, Iraq, and most recently in Ottawa, Canada. That is a typical career where you will spend much of your life and your career moving around the world. Now, we don't just do it because it's fun, we do it because that's when the work has got to get done. So Foreign Service officers represent their country around the world. And while I am what's called a Foreign Service generalist, which is somebody that is involved in our foreign policy, that's doing various aspects of building those political relationships around the world. Foreign Service specialists are the people that we are hiring to provide the platform for that to be successful. For your government to be able to do the work that they've got to do around the world, we need people in all these different categories. Information technology is top of the list. And the IT-related, computer science and cybersecurity related jobs fall into 2 big categories for us. They fall into this one, which we call the Diplomatic Technology Officer position, which I'll get a little bit more into. And down here with security engineering officers. Those positions fall into that category of protecting either our information or our people. On the information side, I showed you where all those embassies were around the world, right? All those locations. We are the most hacked federal agency in the federal government, the most cyber attacked federal agency. Why is that? Because all of those embassies and consulates all over the world talking. People want to know what we're talking about. They want to know what our ambassadors and our regular diplomats are talking about. Remember WikiLeaks, right? I still haven't looked at WikiLeaks. I'm not allowed to. That stuff, even though it's online, is considered classified still. So I don't look. 90% of that stuff was unclassified and sensitive information. But as diplomats, when we have conversations, we still want to protect people's identities, because just because it's not classified doesn't mean it's not sensitive for their life. So there's classified and unclassified information, communications happening all the time that has to be protected. So that's what the diplomatic technology officers are responsible for. They are responsible for maintaining, repairing, and managing our computer systems. Sometimes that's just hard IT work, swapping out the computers, upgrading the servers, doing all that stuff, upgrading the software. Sometimes it's trying to figure out how are we going to integrate AI into a building and a system that just can't avoid it. The world is moving in that direction. And even though it sounds scary for me as a diplomat that we're bringing it into the building, the fact is that's how we're going to be making decisions in the future. It's helping us to organize our information, but it's also exposing us more too, right? So we need people, diplomatic technology officers, that are going to help protect, maintain, and now innovate our information systems into the future, right? And to keep our agency protected against all of those cyber attacks that happen every day. And I've seen them personally. I've been on computers overseas when my mouse started moving, and I wasn't the one moving. You know what I mean? So it happens all the time. Diplomatic technology officers are in demand at the Department of State. As of the deputy chief information officer for the Department of State is a woman named Laura Williams. She's from Texas. She's from Houston. And she was here last year, and she told me then that they had about 200 officers that they had to fill, positions that are unfilled right now. We are actively looking to hire DTOs into those jobs. The other position I want to highlight is what's called the security engineering officer. So I mentioned DTOs, diplomatic technology officers fall within a bureau at the Department of State that is the Bureau of Diplomatic Technology. It used to be called Information Resource Management. Security engineering officers fall under another division, which is called diplomatic security. When I live and work overseas at an embassy, it's a big building. We have to protect our people. Everybody who's grown up since 9/11 knows that America is a target. And so since 9/11, the need to protect our facilities and our people has really increased. So we have a federal law enforcement division of the Department of State called the Diplomatic Security Service. They hire special agents who protect the Secretary of State, protect foreign leaders when they travel, when they come to the United States, and protect our facilities around the world. So they are the ones that are leading security operations, right? They do counterintelligence. counter surveillance, counter cyber, and a host of other things. They manage guard forces, right, that are protecting our embassies around the world. But they also have to be on top of all the physical infrastructure and systems that guard our embassies, which include mag locks on doors, computer systems that link to security infrastructure outside of the embassy, like carports that open and close to let people in and out of the embassy, and other stuff that frankly I don't even understand, that I know that they're doing to protect the physical security of our embassies. And those positions are also open to people with computer science and cybersecurity positions, because it includes both more mechanical type security engineering and a lot of computer and cybersecurity related information systems to maintain that security bubble, right? And protective infrastructure around the embassy. And that position is also in demand and just opened up to start hiring right now. Okay, it's a new position. It's not a new position, but they've kind of revamped it and rejiggered it. So it's opening up right now. We're going to be doing some webinars, actually next week on October 8th. We'll be doing a webinar for people to learn more about that position specifically. So I'm going to skip a couple of slides in this presentation, but for cybersecurity, IT, computer science students, these positions are like open and in demand for the Department of State. And the base level of requirement for both of them is some form of degree in computer science or cybersecurity or IT. It can be either an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a master's and above, but they can be hired at all three levels into the position directly without really a difference in their level of authority. You just, with the federal government, usually your education dictates how much you get paid when you start in the job, right? So when you look at the GS scale for a position, if you're applying to somebody, if the job is open to somebody with a bachelor's or above, and you apply with a bachelor's, somebody else applies with a master's, the only real difference once they get the job is that the worst person, the master's, gets paid more. They come in at a higher grade. Yes.
Do they have GG or GS position numbers with those positions?
We have a different system in the Department of State. Since these are the foreign service, they have a different payment system. It's called the Foreign Service Pay Scale. So if you go to the federal government pay system and just type in foreign service pay, you'll see the pay scale for foreign service specialists. There's a slight difference between specialists and generalists. So yes, there is a federal pay scale and it's public. You can look it up online and you'll see it. And I have a slide that kind of gets in a little bit of it. But it's not a GS pay scale, it's an FS pay scale.
We're not requiring that they have like their Security Plus already.
Security Plus is
That's an industry certification, that's the baseline for cyber.
No, I mean, well, I don't want to say that because I'm not a cybersecurity expert. What I know is if you have a associate's, bachelor's, or master's in cybersecurity or computer science, you qualify for those positions. Yeah. Let me see if I can find my mouse again. All right, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit and skip a few things because it's talking more about these other types of careers, but I'm going to skip to this to get into why you do it. So once again, a job in the Department of State in these foreign service positions is not a 9 to 5, okay? You're not just going to work every day because it's down the block. You are going to spend much of your life and career living and working abroad. So the way that works is you come into the Department of State, say we hire you as a diplomatic technology officer, and you come into an orientation class with other diplomatic technology officers and other diplomats like me. And for the first 6 weeks of your career, you just learn about the State Department. We're teaching you about the institution for which you're working and how to be successful in that institution. On your second day there, we're going to give you a list of all the jobs all over the world that have to get filled by new people. So for DTOs, maybe there's like 10 of you, because we're going to hire like 70 people like me, general diplomats. Maybe we're bringing in 10 at a given period of time of DTOs. All 10 of you get the same list. These are all the diplomatic technology jobs that are available for new people all around the world. You have to pick all of them. You're going to rank them. So maybe 2 of them are in Western Europe, maybe one's in Argentina, maybe one's in China, and maybe one's in Australia. You have to pick all of them and you rank them, which one you want the most. And maybe you want one because you speak a language in that country and you think it would help apply. Maybe you just like that other country and you want to go. You rank it any way you want. Somebody else is going to choose for you based on the needs of the Department of State. So your first 2 assignments in the Foreign Service are directed. Okay? Somebody else makes the ultimate decision. You do that twice. You're going to get 2 overseas assignments that last 2 years each. Overseas, 4 years overseas. When you're overseas, in any assignment with the Department of State, you're housing is paid for and provided to you. That's money that goes in your pocket. So whatever your salary is, remember, you don't have rent, you don't have mortgage unless you have one in the state that you keep. That's paid for by us. You get full federal benefits, life insurance, health insurance, you can have life insurance, you can add dental and vision, but it is federal benefits. Those are good benefits. When you're overseas, if you have kids, sometimes the schools in those countries may not be the same standard as the United States. Sometimes you gotta put them in a private school or an international school. You get 36,000 plus per child per year sent them to those schools. You do not pay for your kids to be able to go to school overseas. That's covered by the Department of State. It does not come out of your salary. When you are working in a country that has a lower standard of living, where's my mouse? Come back to me. A lower standard of living than the United States. There it is. Come back. If you have a lower standard of living than the United States, you start getting allowances. So say your base salary, I'm just gonna throw it out there because I can tell you that for the Foreign Service Generalist category, that's what I'm in. If you have no high school diploma and no work experience, and it's possible to get into those jobs without that. I've never seen it happen, but the requirements are that you just have to be an American citizen between the ages of 20 and 59 and pass a test. Okay? It's a little bit harder for you guys. You actually have to have a degree. To do what I do, you don't necessarily have to have a degree. Everybody's got a degree. But base salary in the Foreign Service Generalist is like 42,000. That's if you had no work experience and not even a high school diploma, 42,000. It starts going up from there. You know, I think average salary for somebody coming in with like a master's degree is like 70,000. Base salary. The minute you go overseas, you get more money because we compensate for the money that you would lose if you were living in DC, because it's actually expensive to live in DC. Then, if you're in a country that's a lower standard of living than the United States, you start upping your salary. You can get up to 35% of your salary on top of your salary for what's called hardship. My first assignment was in Bamako, Mali, in West Africa. Now, I'll tell you, that was in the late 90s, or it was in 2001. It was the safest country I've ever been in my life. We would walk out at midnight, go out to restaurants. I mean, we had a blast. But it was a very poor, low infrastructure country. So I got 25% of my salary on top of my salary. Hardship can go up to 35%. If you're willing to go to places that are dangerous, you can get up to another 35%. So I did a tour in Baghdad by myself, left my family in the States. Typically they would go with me, but I knew I was going to do this. So basically I was making 70% of my salary on top of my salary. And that's after I'd been in the Foreign Service for almost 20 years. So I was making well over $100,000. You get cost of living if the country is more expensive. So when we lived in Belgium, since it's more expensive, you get a COLA. And a cost of living allowance is tax-free. You don't pay taxes on that money. So you get all these various incentives that get bumped up on your salary that's not calculated when you sign the dotted line and you see that federal scale. So you'll see, oh, I'm gonna make $60,000. But then your housing's paid for, that goes in your pocket. Your utilities are covered overseas, that goes in your pocket, all of that stuff. So I just highlight that. Like this is a robust payment structure, a robust lifestyle structure. And it's also not just the money. When I lived in Belgium for 3 years, you know, when I had a free weekend, we didn't just hang out. We were going to Italy. We were going to France, which is 45 minutes away. We were driving to the Netherlands and Germany. You live this international lifestyle that allows you to see the world just as a part of the daily function of your job, right? It's just part of the package. And I always highlight this because I get cyber jobs, digital jobs, computer jobs. They're great. It's the wave of the future. And private sector comes with a lot of benefits and money, but it don't come with a pension. I'll just say that. You know, when over the 24 years of my career, when I have seen friends in the private sector go up and down with layoffs, it's been a wonderful sense of security to work for the federal government and know that that does not happen in the federal government. They do not let go tens of thousands of people from the federal government. You have to do something really bad to get fired from the federal government. So having job security, having a pension, and you get additional retirement savings because I have a thrift savings plan as well. So you get double retirement savings as a part of the job. And then one of the other fun perks is when you're living overseas, you get all American holidays and all the local holidays. And some countries just have a lot of crazy holidays. So like, when am I going back to work? Like, you know, all right. So the point of all of that is to say, look, we need cyber and IT professionals as a national security imperative at the Department of State. We are looking for you. You are building the skills in this place that we need at the Department of State. And whether you have an associate's, a bachelor's, or a master's, you qualify for those key positions that we're hiring for right now. Okay, so the job is cool. You are contributing to national service. You are contributing to our national security and protecting our secrets, basically, and our people. And you are going to live an international lifestyle with a lot of federal security and benefits. So it's very cool. So how do we get you into it? Well, to get the job as a foreign service specialist, you have to have a basic qualification. I told you, for me, I didn't even have to have any qualifications. I did. I had a master's degree when I joined the foreign service. But for a specialist, it's different. So it's a basic application process up front. So once you see the job opening for a DTO, Diplomatic Technology Officer or Security Engineer, you go to our website, which is careers.state.gov. It'll take you to the job announcement. And the first place it's going to take you is, everybody knows about USA Jobs. That's the federal site for applying for jobs. It takes you to USA Job, but you are not applying for a civil service position. So it is not a civil service job application. That is just the portal for which we will take the application for our jobs. And for specialists, you're basically doing an application where you describe yourself, provide your information. They're going to double check your credentials. You say you have a degree, that has to be part of it. So we verify that information, and you have to write some essays about yourself. We want to know more about you than just your name and what you say you've done. Because we are going to evaluate you both based upon your credentials, whatever you say is your level of education and your experience, but on something that we call the dimensions. There are 11 dimensions that are part of our evaluation process, if I can find my mouse again, that we think are important. They're not listed here, and I'm sure if I click it, it'll take me to the site. If you try. Let me see if I can open it. Nah, that's all right. I will try. Those dimensions include things like cultural adaptability, your ability to integrate information, how well you communicate. Because even as an IT professional or a cybersecurity professional at the Department of State, you're going to write a lot of memos, and you're going to have to convince your bosses to do things. You're going to be living and working overseas, which means even though your work might be internal, you're going to have to be able to engage with different cultures, across languages. So we need people, thank you for putting those up. We need people that can do more than just that one thing that they say they can do, okay? So when you apply to these jobs, you're going to apply, you're going to submit those narratives, and there's going to be a basic exam that relates to cybersecurity and IT. That's basically a specific test for that specific position, because you're being hired as a specialist. So they're going to verify your ability to understand the work that we need you to do. You take that test, and then they're going to look at those narratives that you wrote, and they're going to do an evaluation of you. They're going to see if you look like you're fit for the job. And if they like you, you have to move forward to another part of an assessment. It's called an assessment. It's like our interview process, where you are going to be both, you're going to have to do some more writing. You're going to have to basically be interviewed by a specialist like yourself that you're trying to get into that job too, actually. And you typically do an exercise with some other people. So they're going to evaluate you on a range of different skill sets. If you get through that, then we're going to offer you a job, but you have to get a security clearance, a medical clearance, right? Because you live and work all over the world in these jobs. And you have to go through what's called a suitability review, which means we just look at you as a package to see if you're really fit for the job. You get through all of that, then we put you on a list of people that we're hiring for, and then we hire off that list. The federal government's weird when it comes to hiring, right? Because it depends on what Congress does. If Congress don't want to give us money, we don't hire. But we have been hiring regularly in the Department of State for years now. We have budget for hiring, and so far we're moving in. So we are bringing in about 5 classes a year of about 230 people, which includes in every class a number of diplomatic technology officers and security engineering officers. The majority are diplomatic generalists like me, but we are bringing in 10, 20 at any given time, every class 5 times a year, DTOs and security engineering officers. So we are regularly hiring for these positions. Let's see if I can go back to the thing. So you guys are in school, and you can apply as a person expecting to graduate in the next year. You can apply to a DTO job, right? So if you're in your 4th year of undergrad, just say, and you're working towards a bachelor's degree in computer science, you can apply as a senior. and go through the interview process so that as soon as you graduate, you can be hired directly as a DTO for the Department of State Foreign Service. Same thing with a security engineering officer. They both allow you to apply at that point. Since they've updated things, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that would also apply if you're trying to complete your associate's degree too. You just know that you would come in at that lower GS or FS level based upon your level of education, as opposed to somebody that might have a bachelor's, but then the other person that might have a master's. So, for students, for people that are currently in school, for students that are going to continue their education, we have internships and now we have fellowships that will help you find your way into these careers. Internships. So these do not lead to jobs. An internship with the Department of State is not going to result in you being hired at the end of the day, but it is an opportunity for you to get your feet wet in the work at the Department of State. And we know it ain't easy to get from Texas to DC, so we're going to fly you to DC. The cost of your internet, your travel to the location is on us. We're going to cover your housing, and it's a 10-week internship, so we cover it for the full time of the internship, and we pay you for your work for 10 weeks at the Department of State. And computer science, cybersecurity, IT professionals, IT students can apply to do internships at the Department of State in the Bureau of Global Diplomatic Technology or in the Bureau of Diplomatic Security, working in the areas of security engineering, right? So any student can apply to those as long as you're gonna go back to school at the end of the internship. Be a full-time student at the end of the after the internship completes, you have to go back to school. And you have to have at least a 3.2 GPA. So those are the requirements to apply. Our internship program is open right now. Right now, we're accepting applications. So if there are students right now that are looking for summer 2025 internships, and they would like to try to work at the Department of State and try to see what it would be like to be a diplomatic technology officer at the Department of State, they can apply right now through October 7th to do that internship. And it is not a complicated application. It is a basic application form. It is a statement of why you want to do this internship with the Department of State. And you have to indicate where in the Department of State you might want to work, which bureau or location. Traditionally, those internships have been in Washington and overseas. So we would fly you overseas, cover your housing at one of our embassies and consulates overseas, and give you an internship for 10 weeks and at some location abroad to do this work. They told me before I came out to do this job that this summer we were not going to be doing overseas internships. But the website right now has it up to be overseas and domestic. So maybe somebody changed their mind. So if a student wanted to do an internship with the Department of State, either in Washington, DC or overseas, they can apply and get that opportunity. It's a great opportunity. And you can see security engineering and countermeasures is right up there. Cybersecurity operations, they are looking for interns. And these are not perfunctory internships. These are like, we'll put you to work doing the work of what a security engineering officer or DTO does for 10 weeks at the Department of State and pay you for it. But we went a bit further. We need these positions so much and we want to get more people in. We built a program that's going to really incentivize students who are looking to really make this a possible career. So we have a fellowship. It's called the Foreign Affairs IT Fellowship. It is open right now and accepting applications until January 21st. So it's like the internship on steroids. So to get people in the door and to incentivize them to make this a career, we are going to pay for you to get a degree. 2 years of your education. It will either pay for two years to complete your bachelor's degree, so your junior and senior year. So if you're doing your associates now, but you plan to continue to the 4 years, it would pay for the junior and senior year, $43,500 on us per year. It will give you 2 paid internships with us, one at the main Department of State in Washington, DC, same deal, paid, we fly you there and cover your housing. And then the second summer, we'll send you overseas, paid, fly you there, provide your housing, and you an overseas internship with the State Department, learning this work. And then when you're done with your degree, you get the job as a diplomatic technology officer. We put you in the position, it's yours, with a 5-year commitment to pay us back for the education. Or it'll pay for a master's, one or the other. So if you're a senior in college and you want to go get a 2-year master's, this pays for it. Or if you're doing an associate's or you're a sophomore, you want to get the last 2 years covered and end up with a job, you cover it. So the Foreign Affairs IT Fellowship is an amazing opportunity. And this year, they're amplifying the need for people coming out of 2-year programs going into 4. So they're looking to they take about 15 a year. This year, they're gonna take 10 who are gonna be completing their bachelor's and 5 completing their master's. So that's a great opportunity for students coming out of here looking for this opportunity. So I'm gonna leave all these flyers with you guys. I hope all the students will get them. They're a great opportunity. I came into the Department of State through a similar program for the other side of the Foreign Service, for the Foreign Service Generalists. And I mean, it changed my life. I didn't know what I was doing in undergrad, but by finding that program and getting on a track that really focused my education, provided me that training, I mean, it ended up putting me in the career that I have today as a Foreign Service officer representing my country abroad. So that's what I'm here to focus on. I'm here to answer any questions that you have, both about the positions in the job and the fellowships and the internships. There are other programs. We have similar internships for your students that are studying political science or economics or whatever it is. And we also have similar fellowship for somebody who wants to be a diplomatic security special agent, not the security engineering officer. Remember, the diplomatic technology officer and the security engineering officer somewhat overlap in that security engineering officers whose work what I see and what I perceive of it is a bit more, well, it just relates to different type of work, right? Because you're dealing specifically with the security apparatus that protects the buildings of the United Department of State overseas. But a lot of that is computer science, cybersecurity related. We don't have a fellowship to get directly into that job, not yet. But the State Department is building these programs regularly. But if somebody wanted to just be a special agent where you are in protection, a lot of other type of physical security and security operations, we do have a fellowship for that as well. So that's my spiel. I don't really have any other information specifically about those opportunities, but I can answer questions. Once again, the internships are open and available right now. This fellowship, the FATE Fellowship for anybody studying computer science, cybersecurity, is open right now. And we are trying to hire people actively and aggressively for these programs. This is the information about the FATE Fellowship. We are actively looking to put people in these positions right. So that's what I have. Yes.
Okay, I'm definitely interested, just the guidance and the structure.
Yeah.
Of the program. It's something I like. I've been a student here. I'm getting my associate's degree in May.
Nice.
I want to pursue my bachelor's. That commitment, the 5-year commitment, to where I get to see the world and actually talk to different people with different technological skills.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of do that on my own, but I don't have the means to travel to UK to learn these concepts about technology overseas and the governance of different policies they have about technology overseas. I'm fluent in Spanish. I know how to speak English, and I actually speak a little bit of Mandarin.
Nice.
You
already you're selling yourself and look at people who just like you that have an interest in applying their skills on a global setting.
And it's me being a cultural person. Of myself. These are the only thing I heard about the fellowship and the 5-year commitment is something that I'm willing to do. But my question is, if I want to pursue my bachelor's degree within that fellowship, because I get my associate's degree in May.
Yeah.
And she was talking about the scale.
Yeah.
The GS scale or something like that. Would I still be able to, in May when I get my associate's degree, when I see my associate's degree, will I still be able to pursue my bachelor's degree?
So to be very clear,
Uh-huh.
the answer to that is 1000% yes. In
Okay.
fact, that is the purpose of the fellowship.
Okay.
So for you, to put it in a really concrete term,
Uh-huh.
this application is open right now. All right. So you plan to get your associates in May.
In May.
If you were to apply to the FATE Fellowship and receive it, basically you would apply now. The application is open between now and January 22nd, 21st. You submit your application now, January 21st comes around, they close it, within a couple of weeks, they're gonna review everybody and make a decision. So probably by, I don't know, March, you'll have a decision about whether you've gotten into the fellowship. And once they tell you that, it means that we start picking up the dime for the rest of your education for the next 2 years. So we will pay for you to get your the rest of your bachelor's degree.
Okay,
That'll be on us.
okay.
And then after your first year, so you'll finish your associate's degree here,
Mhm.
you'll be applying to wherever you plan to go complete your bachelor's degree. It could be here,
They
could be
have that
someplace else.
degree program here.
So you can stay here, we'll pick up the next 2 years on us. After your first year after your third year, right, after your junior year, right? You're gonna do an internship for us in Washington DC. We're gonna fly you to DC and you're gonna get on the job experience, learning about the work. Then you come back to school, you do your senior year, right?
Mhm.
After that senior year, that next summer, we're gonna fly you overseas, put you in a US embassy or consulate overseas, and then you do this work overseas, so you can see what it looks like.
Mhm.
And then when you come back from that internship, you're gonna have your bachelor's degree that we just paid for. You'll have done 2 internships, and then we're gonna put you in the job. You will be a diplomatic technology officer, and you have a 5-year commitment.
Okay, now during the time that you're taking your bachelor's degree, besides for the internship, because you're in that fellowship program already.
Yeah.
Are there gonna be other things, like things that you're gonna have to participate within the fellowship
Yeah,
during that time? Cause you know, you have to get ready.
yeah, they have some mentorship built into it.
Yes, yes.
So they're gonna
yes,
pair you,
Mhm.
probably with one, but you'll have a series of presentations and other types of discussions and connections with people in those positions over those 2 years. So
Okay.
there's a mentorship component built into it,
Mhm.
so that as you're going through your education, you're able to touch in with people that are actually doing the work
Mhm.
and understand better what you're doing. So yes, there is a mentorship and a pairing with other foreign service officers throughout that 2 years.
And the reason I asked that is because, you know, me being from Texas,
Yeah,
I haven't been out of Texas and Washington DC so far away.
yeah,
A lot of people are reluctant to.
I get it.
I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take cybersecurity, I'm more for business, so, you know, just.
Yeah,
And but you know, as I see this opportunity and it kind of fits to me where I'm able to travel, I really don't have nothing to hold me back and I try to do this on my own. It's very
Yeah.
difficult. To learn about different technology around the world. And I'm like, okay, over Zoom and all that, okay, I see it, but you actually have to do it. These are some of the questions that I had, and I'm very much interested. I'm very much
Good.
interested because every point that you hit is something that's dear to my heart. It's like, okay, well, I can go overseas and learn this, or I'll have that mentorship.
Yeah.
So how to critique me on things that need to be done, and then also I can get my education.
I'm gonna tell you something.
Yeah.
One, I'm happy to hear that you're excited about it.
Mhm.
My job is to be available to people like you,
Mhm.
so I'll put it on the last slide, so that people can see it. Anybody who's online who would like, feel free to reach me at that LinkedIn address right there. Feel free to use that QR code to sign up for what's called our talent network. That is a way to get on the listserv for us where you get updated information about job opportunities, internships, fellowships, and the like. So we are looking for you. We want you to apply. I can't guarantee you're gonna get it, but I can tell you that you fit the profile of people that we are looking for this program, which is people that otherwise would not know about the job to apply to it, to get into this type of fellowship and make a career out of becoming a diplomatic technology officer. And some of my best stories, and I'll answer your question, like I said. Some of my best stories are the fact that there's a mentor of mine in the Foreign Service named Harry Thomas, African American from Brooklyn, never left Brooklyn when he was young. And, you know, found out about the Foreign Service, took the test that we offered, passed. And his first passport was a black passport, it was a diplomatic passport. And he went on to become an American ambassador to the Philippines. Like, there is the possibility for you to translate that interest that you have into a career that could lead to you having a senior position leading cybersecurity at the Department of State. And we want to see that. Yes, I'm sorry.
The general population of our students, we have some students who are they already have an associate's or a bachelor's in a different field.
Sure.
So they're coming in and switching to cybersecurity.
Sure.
Would those students qualify for something like this?
Totally, but I think for the positions themselves, like for the DTO position and for the security engineering position, they have to have the right degree for that position.
Yes.
So if you have a bachelor in English and you've switched over to cybersecurity, you still have to get the degree.
So with recommendations for them not to apply for that, but to apply for the careers.state.gov, which forwards to USA jobs and stuff.
Actually, my recommendation is to apply to everything that they qualify for.
Okay, would they qualify if they already have a degree? I guess it's a better question, because they already have a degree.
As long as it's not, I mean,
Bachelor's and
if
associates.
they already have, if there's somebody that maybe had an unrelated degree. And they're switching to IT and cybersecurity,
Yes,
that's fine.
okay,
Truth is, there's nothing precluding somebody that already has a. You know, cybersecurity degree or an IT degree from applying to this, if they maybe want to go on to get a bachelor's. So you have a cybersecurity or an IT related bachelor's degree and you want to get your master's, apply to this. This pays for it.
okay. Then the second question is background checks.
Yeah.
And security clearances.
Yeah.
Is it TS, SEI clearance, or is it just TS position clearance?
It's TS, and
There's no
for the ultimate
requirement for
position,
that.
it's TS. TS SCI is always interesting, like TS SCI is always job specific.
Yes,
So for us, every job, if you get hired at the Department of State in a foreign service position, it's up to a TS clearance. We all get TS, it's all TS. And then you might end up getting a job in a position, right, an assignment, once you're in the foreign service, that requires you to get TS, but that's done for that specific position, and then, you know, when you don't have.
and then we have students mixture, US citizens, non-US citizens,
Yeah.
you wanna touch that as well?
Certainly, all of the positions, all of the opportunities that I talked about today are for American citizens. You have to be an American citizen to apply to the internships, the fellowships, and the position. So the question I get most often is, well, what if you're a dual national? What if you're an American citizen but you have other nationality? As long as one of those nationalities is American, you qualify for this position. It is not uncommon, you can imagine, in a career where people live and work overseas, that you would find people with international background, right? Or they marry somebody from another country and their spouse doesn't have to be an American for them to get married and to be a part of their career, it happens. So having multiple nationalities is not our concern, as long as one of your nationalities is American, is English, is American, is United States citizen, you qualify for the positions. If you're not an American citizen, then you don't. You can't apply to these positions if you're not an American citizen. If you're an LPR, if you're a legal permanent resident and you intend to get your citizenship, then the minute you get your citizenship, you qualify for the position. And if you're an international student and your intention is to go back overseas, even though the positions that I'm not selling and talking about aren't available to you, one thing I can give you information about is that, remember, we have 276 embassies in 191 countries. Even though the bulk of the staffing, of the American staffing, the official diplomatic foreign service staff is from the United States, we still hire, most of the employees at the embassies are local hires, right? So when I was in Canada, the embassy had, let's just make an estimation, 200 American officers, but there was like 600 Canadians working at the embassy because we need local expertise and we need people to do the work. So we still hire local computer technicians, cybersecurity folks at the embassies directly overseas. They have to be citizens of those countries to have the legal right to work there, and they're hired directly at the embassy. It's not a federal career that leads to a pension, right? It's a local hired position at the embassy or consulate overseas. But for any foreign nationals that are going back to their countries, those are great opportunities, right? Because if you've studied in the United States, it means you speak really good English, you've got a degree in the United States. So when our embassy is looking for local hires, those folks tend to pop out because, oh, you went to school in Texas. That makes perfect sense to them. They know that you're gonna understand how Americans operate, how we work. It's a great opportunity, I think, for a lot of international students when they go back to their countries.
Thank you for answering the pre-category.
Of course, those are really good questions. Those are really good questions. Any other questions? Anybody online? I don't know. And I think I'm at my time exactly. It's 4:59. I hit it on the head. So I'm gonna leave.
Answered all the questions.
Great. I'm leaving flyers for the fellowship. I don't have flyers for the internships, but it's all on careers.state.gov. I'm also leaving flyers for security engineering officers and for our foreign service specialist, which is the category under which the DTO and these positions falls. So, you know, it just gives you basic information, takes you to the website, talks about the hiring process. I'll leave all these here with you guys to share with students. And once again, there's my photograph and my contact. Please send that to any students. Your students can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I answer those connections, I respond to those messages. I will drive them to the website and I will help them any way I can, including yourself.
Okay,
Please-
my name is Kenneth Brissett.
What's your name again?
Kenneth Brissett.
Kenny?
Yeah, so
Nice to
I
meet
will
you,
be
Kenny.
reaching out to
Please
you.
connect with me and I'd love to, as much as I can, help you
You go
as you
your
apply.
mother.
I'm home on Monday. I'm home on